start to realize that our people are in great, great danger now. Cry for the gods, cry for the people, cry for the land that was taken away. Cry for the gods, cry for the people, cry for the land that was taken away.
Okay, my name is Ray Songtree. I'm in Kauai. Hawaii is advertised as paradise. We have here on Kauai a first strike missile base. Developed the Aegis missile here, 6,000 miles per hour. We have it here. The Aegis missile can hit anywhere in the world in 1 hour. That's what we have on Kauai. We have 4 of the biggest GMO chemical testing companies here. They're in a class action lawsuit with the community who they've poisoned, but they're crushing that with delays and delays. The community got behind a county ordinance or a bill to ask them simply, the law will be that you have to disclose to us what chemicals you're using, and you have to create a buffer zone around the schools and the public access ways. And their reaction? This is Pioneer, DuPont, BASF, and Syngenta. Syngenta wants to merge with Monsanto now. Syngenta is out of Basel, Switzerland. Basel. It's where the central banks are organized. Okay, it's the Bank of International Settlements is in Basel. That's where Syngenta is. They're here using chemicals, atrazine, that is illegal in Switzerland, and they're using it here. But they won't admit it, and they've sued our county so that they can have the right to do whatever they want without disclosure, okay, and to not have a buffer zone around our schools where there's presently a class action suit against them because we have cancer here. So that's what paradise is looking like. I could go on and on about Kauai.
Kauai also has Mark Zuckerberg, who just bought 700 acres here. And Zuckerberg supposedly created Facebook, but no one ever mentions that MySpace already existed. So in my opinion, he was brought in as a, computer whiz to create an alternative to MySpace. And for some reason, his system went crazy and got funded, and MySpace never did.
I don't have to go far for the beast, okay? And I'm going to give an outline of the beast, but the beast is not something separate from who we are. No one is perfect. Everyone has temptation. Everyone can lean away or toward compassion. And those beings and people who lean away from compassion and seek to kind of glorify their own vanity by proving itself by abusing others, that starts to go into what we call abuse and crime and evil. So this beast, that we call the beast, or we call evil, or we call negative, it's a tendency that any of us can have. And we have been socially engineered by these people who want to control everybody. They have social engineered our values.
And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything, fuck you.
My book, my series, is an attempt to bridge generations. I go into the celebrities big time, especially in the second book, because I want young people to be able to relate to it. So when I discovered that the same people who are manipulating politics are also manipulating the music industry with the all-seeing eye symbol, all kind of connections happened for me. And this is what I looked into. And I looked into what I found to be a fact, that everyone we've heard of was promoted so that we heard of them. And if they weren't promoted, we never would have heard of them. So all of the big leaders in World War II, Churchill, FDR, Gandhi, Hitler, all these people were groomed for their positions. Including Gandhi, and I know all about that. Hitler, oh my gosh. Hitler was the illegitimate grandchild of Solomon Rothschild in Vienna. His maid, he knocked up his maid, he was a lecher. His maid left, had the son, Alois, I think is his name, and his son was Hitler. So they set all that up. I'm going to give a little bit of history. I'd love to give more, but I'm curious if you guys could raise your hands. How many people have heard of Jacob Schiff? Yay! Okay. All right. It's hard to know where to start, and I'm going to talk as fast as I can. But the history is not conspiracy history. It's the history of a syndicate. It's not syndicate theory. It's syndicate history. So I was going to go into the whole evolution of the Jewish religion. And I'll just mention it comes from a channeled entity, okay, who used Moses. Moses was the channeler. This entity took people and with traumatic mind control was the method, stuck them in the desert for a couple of generations, weeded out anyone who asked questions, and then gave them animal sacrifice rituals, which continued the mind control. Okay, this went all the way up to Jesus coming, who is, as you all know, is pronounced Jesus by most of the world that is Christian. And Jesus, there are other realms that we can't see. I think you all are very familiar with that. And we'll say Jesus was with a group, and they saw the Roman Empire, which was completely evil. It was just a strip mining, pillaging, raping culture, enslaving everyone. All slavery led to Rome. Okay, they were perverted, and their bread and circuses took the form of an incredible structure called the Colosseum, where sadism, sadistic killing and death was celebrated. That was their religion. Again, this is traumatic mind control. This is how you keep a population dumbed down.
We're going to turn now to that shocking moment at Sunday's NFL game in Kansas City. Some hometown fans actually cheered when the Chiefs quarterback was knocked flat with an injury, and one of his teammates is fighting back, comparing those hecklers to the crowds at the Colosseum in Rome.
Okay, so that horrible, horrible Roman Empire was coming into Palestine. And the group that Jesus was part of said, this is bad news. We're going to have this monotheistic, we're the chosen people, we're totally conceited, we have dominion over all the earth, everything that creepeth on the earth, and that's what our God said, and that's the only God, there's only one God, and this was going to meet the Roman Empire. So Jesus incarnated there. Now I've had two interactions with Jesus, one nonverbal and one verbal. This person being is real and is a virtuous being, stood up to all that, gave the Jews an alternative. A lot of them went that way, a lot of them didn't, and a lot of them never heard about it. So it's wrong to say Jews rejected Christ. Some did, some didn't, and some never heard about it. Okay? Within 100 years, the Roman Empire, they took the temple down. They razed it to the ground. The Jews scattered, went to Europe. In Europe, they didn't have their temple and their rituals and all that, and the rabbis made up a new religion, which was called the Talmud. And the Talmud was a way that these people who were landless could excuse themselves for basically taking advantage of the non-Jewish people. And they call them the Goyim. And they could take advantage of them, and they justified that. And that's all in the Talmud. That was exposed by a rabbi who exposed that to the Pope. And he was a convert. He became a Christian, and he exposed that to the Pope. That's when the Catholic Church became aware that the Jewish religion had changed. It wasn't what it used to be. It had changed, and now it was something subversive and bad. It was negative. I mean, it was excusing, and the Jews were into usury and vices, all kinds of vices, and they did that all the way. I mean, up until World War II, they controlled the alcohol in Russia. They controlled it for a century. They controlled it all. They became the slavers who brought slaves over from Africa. This culture, which was pretty much kind of living off of everyone else and justifying it and thinking that they were chosen, this was the culture that the Rothschilds came out of. The Rothschilds didn't invent usury. It had been going on for a long time. But the Rothschilds got into the aristocracy, and they came in when war became industrialized, when it became big bucks. And a country that was being threatened by war, their leaders would need money now. And the money that they loaned was backed by the citizenry. So it was very secure loan, because the citizens would just be taxed to pay it back. So, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Amschel. Rothschild was the father of modern banking, according to Forbes. His sons, he had his sons go out to different countries. Nathan Rothschild went to England, I think at the age of 18, with basically unlimited funds. Okay, these people are that rich in those times. I mean, so he could make a deal with anyone. He could beat anyone's deal because he could take a loss. He could do anything he wanted. He quickly became very, very influential. The East India Company was already in the Far East since the early 1600s, but he did take it over, and the East India Company became the Rothschilds, and which you all know is in German is pronounced Rothschild. So anyway, it's Red Shield. Their first name was Bauer, but it got changed. Blah blah blah. All this history. So when you think of the Boston Tea Party, it wasn't Americans protesting the British. That's not true. See, everything has been changed and distorted. Okay? What they were protesting was the East India Company. And that's why they had the Boston Tea Party. The tea was coming India. It was anti-Rothschild, okay? Anti-East India Company. What was Nathan Rothschild's reaction? He was pissed off about this American colony thing. And he was behind the War of 1812. Okay, I'm not going to go now into the Freemasons. Okay, I will. The Freemasons are a really ancient order, secret order, and King James was a Freemason. And he had translators translate for a new Bible, which King James Version of the Bible. This was the Bible, everyone, for 300 years. For the whole English Empire, which is really the Rothschild Empire, it was that Bible. King James was a Freemason. The person who compiled all those translations was Sir Francis Bacon. Sir Francis Bacon was a Freemason. High degree. This is the Christianity that influenced the whole world. It was a Freemasonry version of it. Sir Francis Bacon was very good at English. He is the mind behind Shakespeare. That's who it was, Sir Francis Bacon. So this Freemasonry was very strong. Out of the 56 founding fathers, 50 of them were Freemasons. We didn't have a revolution. We had a Freemasonry takeover after the British were pushed aside, which was really the Rothschilds. But that was then very quickly infiltrated by Frank Jacob's sect, which was the Rothschilds. And George Washington wrote a letter about it, that this Jacobinism has not yet infiltrated our Freemasonry. Well, that's all fine and good, Mr. Washington, but the Freemasons are there, and their concept of God is this all-seeing eye on top of a man-made pyramid. Okay? And since they're at the top of the pyramid, they pretty much are ordained by God, their God, to control everyone else. That is the culture of the Constitution. The Constitution is not about democracy. It's about keeping those in power in power. There has never been a free election. Every election forever in this country was manipulated by the media. Always. Okay. So, what happened, Jackson, he was up against the banks. He didn't want another bank. He understood how bad these banks were. They control countries. And he stopped them. Jackson has made a big patriot by people now. Some people who understand why the banks are bad. But Jackson he was behind the Trail of Tears. I'm about to cry. When the Cherokee were forced off their land and had to walk and died on the way, you know. Awful. This guy was a bad dude. And I want to say something about Thomas Jefferson. Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, with the Louisiana Purchase, knowingly consigned hundreds of cultures and tribes to extinction. I don't think that's so wonderful, okay? And I have my connections with that person. That's another whole story. Then we have Lincoln. Lincoln stood up to the banks. He came out with the greenback. The greenback was a debt-free currency. Oh, that pissed them off.
Old pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit.
He was killed. Booth admitted later there was international backing behind his assassination of Lincoln.
But my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom?
So Jacob Schiff grew up in the house of Rothschild, Frankfurt. He came over in 1865 at the age of 18. Again, with unlimited funds. Okay? He could beat anyone's deal. He quickly gained influence. Now, I need help with this pronunciation because I don't know how to do it. It's Kuhn. I don't know if it's Kuhn or Kuhn, Loeb and Company. This was his company who I'm about to explain to you how the Rothschilds and Rockefellers are the same entity. So the Rothschilds were into vice. We already talked about that. And they were into drug running. And they forced, with their British Empire, they owned the British Empire. It was their business model. They forced opium on China with the Opium Wars, with gunships that went down the coast smashing everything. Cannons, like 20 cannons on either side of the boat. So the Chinese didn't have anything like that. So they pushed opium, okay? And by the way, they're doing it right now, okay? You all know that as soon as the U.S. went into Afghanistan, the Taliban had shut down opium. The U.S. got it up immediately and got it back into production. And you all know that, well, maybe you don't, that Mexico, you know, Operation Fast and Furious was just the tip of the iceberg of the U.S. funding the cartels of Mexico to destabilize Mexico, which is a good thing for the controllers. They like weak people. Destabilized countries, they need help. That's their whole deal. Destabilization, consolidation. They destabilized Mexico. They funded the cartels. They gave them guns. And where is the biggest opium production in the world now? Mexico. And how much does heroin cost? Everywhere? Nothing. It costs is like a six-pack of beer. Okay? That is the Rothschilds. Okay? I'm going to draw some more stuff here. Important name. He comes in. He takes control bit by bit. By the end of the 1890s, he's in control of 96% of the railways. Okay? But he's already in control. He discovers another drug runner named John D Rockefeller. Okay? He and John D Rockefeller is getting into oil with really just horrible. I can't know how to say it. With no scruples, the way he competed with other oil companies. So Rothschild, Jacob Schiff, comes in and says, "Hey, John D, we're going to give you a deal. We're going to give you a discount on your oil that we ship with our railroad." And this deal, this discount is so significant. He gives them a deal that Rockefeller's oil, he puts everyone else out of business, basically. And Standard Oil takes over, okay? And they're working together. Okay, this company, I'll say Q and Loeb and Company, which is Jacob Schiff, which is the Rothschilds, ends up being the ones who put together the Rockefeller Foundation.
Cry for the gods, cry for the people, cry for the land that was taken away.
This is how close they are, okay? They are the same thing. So I call them the Rockefellers. I'll give you more examples of this. Now, Jacob Schiff was a very significant monster, okay? He funded and trained the Bolsheviks right in Manhattan, New York. Rebels in Libya and the rebels in Syria, there's no rebels there. They're all mercenaries. The Bolsheviks were mercenaries. They were sent over to be the rebels, and Nathan Rothschild, a century earlier, all right, Nathan Rothschild, Napoleon gets defeated, 1814. Nathan Rothschild organizes a big conference to decide how the victors are going to get along. This is his first League of Nations international attempt. The Tsar of Russia smells a rat. He knows all about these money changer types. And he says, "No way, I'm not doing it." That ends the conference. It's not going to happen. By the way, that Rothschild conference was the PhD thesis of Henry Kissinger. Okay? Remember that. So,
Tears would come from each other's eyes as they would start to.
They could not bomb in Laos, they could not bomb in Vietnam, so that began the incredible bombing of Cambodia. And this is when the number of bombs dropped, equaled the amount of bombs dropped on Japan during World War II. The American pilot in the air and the American embassy, which was illegally directing the airstrikes. We couldn't understand why there were so many civilian casualties in this war. Why were they hitting all these civilians in villages?
From 1969 to 1973, more than 500,000 Cambodians died. By 1974, the bombing had disrupted the nation's agricultural system and a famine ensued. Over 2 million refugees poured into overcrowded cities.
There was no American war in Cambodia before President Nixon and Dr. Kissinger.
That is totally incorrect. I think we inherited a tragedy. We attempted to and succeeded in extricating America with honor from this tragedy.
Oh, we inherited it. No, you did not inherit it. You are the designers of the Cambodian policy.
But pretty soon, we're going to live in a world.
he vows to destroy the Tsar. 100 years later, Jacob Schiff sends the Bolsheviks. They are better armed than anyone else. They are totally funded, unlimited funds behind them. They take over Russia. They kill the Tsar and his children. Boom. Cold blood.
Pleased to meet you. Hope you get smiley. It was puzzling you. It's just nature. Stuck around St. Petersburg when I saw walls of town for change. Killed the Tsar and his ministers and sent her. She cried in vain.
Now, that was one of the worst things he did. But Jacob Schiff was into all kinds of crap. He started the ADL, which would socially engineer our view of the Rothschilds. And everything that we would criticize would be called anti-Semitism. Now, this nose, big nose, I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. Okay? Ashkenazi Jews come from the kingdom of Kazakh, Caspian Basin. It's now called Georgia and Ukraine. That country, that kingdom was converted in a whole to Judaism in 740 because the Muslims were coming from the south, Christians were at the north. This tricky king said, so he converted to Judaism, but these Jews, supposed Jews, who all speak Yiddish, who are 90% of the Jews of the world now, according to the Jewish Encyclopedia, these fake Jews, converted Jews, they never got original Judaism, they got the Talmud that I told you about. Okay? So this is the culture. Okay? So I can say anything I want about the ADL or Jews because this is an Ashkenazi Jewish face. Okay? My extended family was all killed in World War II in Europe. So I can talk about Israel, and I do. Israel is a station for the hitmen of the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the father of Hadil. My daughter was being killed by the Israeli soldiers on 22 September of this year. She was being killed 4 times. First, by shooting her, more than 10 bullets. More than 2 soldiers shooted her. Second time, they left her for about 45 minutes to bleed without any medical assessment. She was exsanguinated. Third, while transferring her via ambulance without any medical assessment, as example, without an endotracheal intubation, without mechanical ventilation, without any assessment. Fourth, and it is the most important for me, exposing her innocent body and taking pictures by the Israeli soldiers, recycling these pictures through the Facebook. I am seeking for justice. Please, I am just seeking for justice. I am a father, like many others.
Just for a day, our king and queen would visit all these islands and saw everything. How would they feel about the changes of our land? Could you just imagine if they were around and saw highways on the sacred grounds? How would they feel about this modern city life? Tears would come from each other's eyes as they would start to realize that our people are in great, great danger now. How would they feel? Would their smiles be content than and cry? Cry for the gods, cry for the people, cry for the land that was taken away, and then yet you'll find a way. Could you just imagine if they came back and saw traffic lights and railroad tracks? How would they feel about this modern city life? Tears would come from each other's eyes and they would start to realize that our land is in great, great danger now. All the fighting that the king had done.
I am seeking for justice. Please, I am just seeking for justice. I am a father, like many others.
It's been a
Na 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 na. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love, and it's time that I realized there are some with no home, not a nickel to load. Could it be really me, pretending that they're not alone? A willow deeply scarred, somebody's broken heart on a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind, you see, 'cause they got nowhere to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look